Okay, here we go. Good evening, everyone. Yate. I'd like to acknowledge our traditional caretakers and ancestors for these lands we reside on in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're surrounded by pueblos, pueblo ancestors, and wherever you're beaming in from, we'd like to acknowledge your traditional caretakers and ancestors of the lands you sit on. Glad we're all here today. We're Indigenous Ways, dedicated to bridging cultural exchange with people globally. Tonight we have a very special guest. Our sister LeTanya Thinn, Nashteji Tkapahe, is a wonderful person that we met while we were working on a festival at Dene College in Tsaili last year. And LaTanya was a part of the student association government and really helped shape and direct what we needed to do and who needed to be involved. And she was very active in getting the students involved as well. LaTanya has done a lot of engagements with culture and revitalization for to keep our culture alive. So we were so impressed with LaTanya that we decided to invite her to our event, our virtual event. So everybody, let's give it up for LaTanya Thinn for her presentation tonight. Woohoo! Thank you, LaTanya, for being with us. Take it away.
Thank you so much. She'eya nash ajit kabahan shlon ashi habashishchin look at the shichido ye eden ed khachini eda shinale. Litanya thin shiedo shant hohodet nasha. Hello everyone, my name is LeTanya Thinn. I'm from Shanto, Arizona. I'm currently a student at Dene College. I serve as the student body president, and I'm very, very happy to be here to join you guys. I first want to say thank you to the organizers, all the wonderful people involved, our translators, and everyone who had a part in this. It's just so great and so wonderful what you guys are doing, and I really appreciate and enjoy a lot of the events and the speakers that you have. So I'm very honored and very grateful to be part of this circle and to be able to share a little bit of my story and where I come from. So thank you.
You're very welcome. We're so honored to have you, LaTanya. Ahehet Ayesabeh. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so um, I just would like to, first of all, acknowledge all the listeners, especially at this very challenging time that we see ourselves in. I think any way for us to find healing, to find comfort, and to find our peace and to recenter ourselves is very, very important, whatever that may be, whether it's taking a run, reading a book, just finding new hobbies. It's very, very important for you to, find a very good and positive, productive way to build yourself and also to encourage others. And so I just wanted to share, a little bit of my story with the theme being rise and resilience. As Indigenous people, being resilient is something, that is more a part of who we are without even really knowing it. But it is important to understand and acknowledge that we do have that in our history. Um, and history is so important. Learning where you come from is one of the fundamental things, in building your foundation and going forward and being productive in your life, being a good citizen. And so I'm very honored again to be here and to share my story. So my journey begins, um, I guess, with my grandparents. So both my grandmother and my grandfather lost their mothers at a very young age. And so from there, they pretty much went out and worked the fields, left the reservation, and kind of made their livelihood out there. And so with that, a lot of our traditional teachings that have been in our families were not shared, were not really known at the time. And so for that reason, I'm more familiar with a lot of Western knowledge, and kind of along that same line of thinking has been the primary part of who I am and how I go about, my decision making. And so for most of my life, I have lived off the reservation, and it's had its good and its bad in terms of how it's shaped my life and my thought process. And so going forward in my life, there were a lot of things that I realized that I didn't understand or I didn't know about myself as an Indigenous person. And it wasn't until 2015 when I came to Dene College that I really, started to kind of have an inkling of what it meant to be a Navajo woman. When you're young, you are taught to recite your clans, and that's just what you did. You recited them without really understanding or knowing, what that meant, what those clans mean. And so my journey began in 2015 in becoming resilient and learning, my history. And so I just want to talk a little bit about the college. The groundbreaking happened on April 13, 1968. And what had happened at that time was, there were a lot of challenges being faced with boarding schools and a lot of our Indigenous youth, struggling in a lot of ways. And so our forefathers had the wonderful, wonderful insight, about the future and our children and what they would need. And so inside of the groundbreaking were a lot of prayers and songs said to create a foundation for Navajo youth, for Dene youth to be able to come back and to learn all of these things that had basically been, made illegal for us to do, with ceremonies, with boarding schools, also, with the relocation camps across all indigenous nations. We know this history between us and the United States government. And so all of that was understood and seen by our elders. And so they established this institution here for our youth to have a place to come to learn who they are and where they come from. And I'm very fortunate and proud to say that I am a product, of that, especially not having the knowledge of a lot of my traditions and my culture, and really, really not knowing who I am as a Navajo woman. And so that my journey began here in 2015, and it's where I found my footing. It's where I was able to put together my foundation. And through Dene College, I've really been very fortunate and blessed to be part of so many different organizations and opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. And it really has helped to shape, my future in a positive way, to have the tools, to have everything that I need to be able to face challenges that we go through in life. And it really wasn't until 2016, during that whole time with the Standing Rock movement, that I really, something was stirred inside of me. And so there were some faculty members, there were about 15 of us who went total. And one faculty member, our female chaperone, her name was LaFrenda Frank. And she was very, very instrumental in a lot of Dene College students really understanding what it means to be resilient, what it means to understand our history, and how that is important for us to know, especially if we are to make positive change. And rewriting our own history is very, very important as well. And so having her be our chaperone and to take us to Standing Rock, I knew and I understood that it was a very important and historical moment that was happening as it was playing out. And so we did some fundraising efforts. we were able to collect supplies. And in October of 2016, we left to Standing Rock. Prayers were said for us. We left in 3 vehicles. It took us approximately 21 hours to get there. And when we got there, it was very cold. There were people who greeted us at the gate. We were able to unload our supplies, and we had the intention of staying about 4 or 5 days and then to return back to Tsaili. And so coming into the camp was really something to see, to know what was happening in that moment. I didn't really understand the magnitude of what was happening, but I knew that it was something important. And so we went into camp, and a lot of people shared their stories with us, and they were just very grateful for all of the supplies. And so we unloaded. We came across some of our people from one of the individuals actually was from Luke Ajikwe, and he welcomed us into his camp. His name was Cyrus Norcross. And so his camp was called Sheep Camp. And so we set up camp with them. We had our tents, and in our supplies, we brought a lot of blankets and sweaters and jackets and things of that nature because it was cold. And had we known how cold it was, I think we might have kept some of those supplies for us, because that night it was so cold. I had not experienced, cold of that nature, and still have yet to, but I was literally chilled to my bones. So for the next 4 or 5 days, I wore 3 layers of pants, 3 to 5 layers of sweaters and jackets. And that was how we slept as well, huddled together with tarps over our tents. And it was just a great experience. As women, we took up the kitchen. We were able to cook over the fireplace. And it was very much like, I guess, sheep camp at home on the reservation. So in that regard, it was not unfamiliar. And so we spent the next 4 to 5 days just helping and providing food. And there were times when we would go to the front of the gate when people were getting ready to go to the front lines, and you would just see a gathering of people and their horses. And us being with our institution and all of the rules that go along with that, we didn't go to the front lines. We stayed in camp and kind of just helped with the everyday maintaining of camp. And it was just such a wonderful experience. The amount of people that were there. Some people would come during the week and leave on the weekends, or they would leave during the week and come back during the weekend. So there was always an influx of people, and it was not really what I had expected inside of camp. It didn't feel it wasn't like scary or how it was being portrayed in the news. Perhaps that happened later on, but we were not exposed to any of that. It was just a very good experience. People came and shared stories. The fire was always lit at the entrance, and just kind of being able to walk around. One of the fun parts of the camp was this area where they called the strip mall. So right down the middle, there was a pile of all of the donations that people had brought. And you basically just went in there and exchanged things. So if you felt like, it was going to be really cold, you would recycle whatever you were wearing and put that back in the pile, and you would, get something bigger or something, that was a little more comfortable. And that was kind of how we went about our days. I had my first wipes bath. There was no shower facilities. So we kind of just did it how we grew up, just kind of washing up like you did, like I used to do when I stayed with my grandmother, and, my Nolly lady. And so that was interesting. But yeah, so that was basically, how our days were, day in and day out. But the nights were very, very cold. You really, really had to be careful to not drink too much fluids after a certain time, so you didn't have to wake up in the middle of the night. And it was just a great experience overall. It wasn't really until the last day when we were getting ready to leave. We were all gathered around and praying and laughing with the people with our camp that had taken us in, and it was very emotional. And I hadn't expected to feel that way. And as we were driving away, there was an individual who kind of cried out, like a shout. And I don't know what it was in that moment, but it it struck me inside of me. Like I felt something I had never felt before. And that really, really was the point where I came to myself, if that makes sense. But on the drive home and talking to LaFrenda about our experience, and really, really talking about the importance of the moment that was happening and how everybody was coming together for the first time, really, in the history of our nation, for Indigenous people to come together like that, and all people to come together, with one message and with one important goal in mind. And so in talking with LaFrenda, I felt so moved that I felt like I needed to do something more. And upon coming back, we started to put together a paperwork to put a club together that would, I thought really, really long and hard about the name of what this organization would be. And so what came to my mind was Indigenous confluence of knowledge and accountability, and confluence being the merging of definition-wise 2 rivers, but the two merging things were knowledge and accountability. And so in talking with LaFrenda, she was willing to be an advisor. And from there, it was just nothing was, off limits in terms of discussion, in terms of events. We held a no DAPL rally. There were four of us women who came together and were the officers there and kept that organization going. And for all intensive purposes, we had to have a president, vice president, a secretary, and treasurer. And we were able to put together a lot of events. And I think that was really where my life changed, where I felt like I could make a difference, where what I had to say was important and how I felt about things, mattered. And most importantly was to be vocal about those things, that there were a lot of people who felt the same way. And so the main mission of the club was to provide a safe space for students to come to talk about issues that they felt were important, whether it was, global or local, across any, Indigenous tribe across the world. Events could be past, current, present, whatever it was, it was welcome. And we were able to host some really, really good events. Like we did domestic violence awareness. We did the warrior twin story. Those stories can only be told in the winter season. And so that was another thing, was I wanted to share a story, but it's not really the appropriate time for that. So we were able to, bring those stories to our students. LaFrenda, always brought in her classes, and we talked about Thanksgiving and really learning and understanding, where the concept of Thanksgiving came from. And if you don't know, it's not even, anything compared to what is considered Thanksgiving today. It actually just comes from the account of two Anglo individuals who kind of romanticized and kind of elaborated on what had occurred, and it really wasn't the truth. And so, just really talking about those kinds of issues with our students was really eye-opening, and for us to understand the importance of writing our own history, that's where that came from. And that was, how my journey started in terms of me wanting to make a difference and to try to make a difference. And so with Standing Rock, that was where my biggest growth happened, and also motivated me to learn my history, to really understand who I was. And so in 2017, we were able to get our club up and running. And then the following year, 2018, it was our 50th anniversary for the college. And so I was asked to be the patient to sit for that. And if you, for myself in particular, I, as I mentioned, had no knowledge of what ceremonies meant. And finally, having that part of myself and my history, who I was, given back to me by the college, was very emotional for me. And it still is, it's something that has really grounded me. And I can't say thank you enough to, what this college has done for me. And then in 2019, I also had the honor and the privilege of planning the 51st anniversary. And I tell you what, that was definitely an experience like I have never had. All of the things that go into planning a ceremony, it's just, you really have to rely on your prayers, because there's just a lot of challenges that happened. And to me, that was kind of a reflection of life, all of those little obstacles that I faced, just pushing through, although it felt like things would not work out, just having the faith and trusting the process and using my prayers and standing, on what I felt was right and what was important, and having those good intentions in my heart for my college, for my people, for our students. It's so much bigger than things are so much bigger than what they seem. And so looking at it on that scale, it really pushed me to go through those obstacles. And in the end, it's like everything just, came together one after another. And worrying about it really didn't help me. It kind of was a hindrance, I guess. I was in my own way. And so after that whole process, it really opened my eyes to, how much we can't worry, how much worry can just, eat at you and cause you physical ailments. And you kind of do it to yourself, And at the conclusion of that ceremony, I kind of felt like it brought me full circle. Finally, I am back to what I would have had I been brought up with all of these teachings. And for the longest time, I think from that time in Standing Rock in 2015, I felt like this separation in myself. There was the me who I was, having all of my experiences off the reservation and apart from my culture, apart from my tradition, apart from my language. And I could see this other side of me walking alongside of me, the me who who had all those teachings, the me who, had all of those prayers and songs instilled in her from conception to, in the womb to birth, and then through adolescence life in that way. And I don't know if it makes sense or you understand, but I could feel like two of me walking side by side. And with every single experience I had at the college, it's like we were getting closer and closer together until just this last year in 2019, when the 51st anniversary blessing way ceremony, when I had the privilege of organizing that, it's like I came into myself. And that was a very, very defining moment for me. And it just really caused me to appreciate, and most importantly, to acknowledge, my growth in that way. And there were just so many people who contributed to my growth. And I can't say thank you enough to everyone. And with the work that you guys are doing, it's just so key and beautiful what you guys are doing. And it makes me, want to do more. It inspires me. I would love to put together a nonprofit to continue, this line of work once I leave Dene College. It is important to know that one person can make a difference. It's the little things that you do that end up, having big results in the end. And so that's kind of been, my life here, reconnecting to myself here at the college. And there's just so many things that have happened. Those are just, the bullet points, the highlights that I have had the privilege of experiencing. And I do need to write all of this down. It's been honestly like a fairy tale here, being at this college, and everything that I've had the opportunity to be a part of, all of the people who have come into my life, giving me strength, giving me hope, being my medicine. That's really one of the key things that I have been without, for a part of my life. And then to be able to turn around and share that with my family is, the cherry on top. My nieces and my nephews, I can share these stories with them. They don't have to have that same experience. And it is a lot of work. It is a lot of hard work to be the one to go out and to regain that knowledge. But it's important. It's work that you have to do. There's a lot of responsibility in attaining knowledge and in understanding, your place, I guess, in this world and your family. And the college really, really is a testament to Indigenous resilience. And so I love to talk about, my college. It's just really shaped me and helped me in more ways than I can even explain. And so I just wanted to kind of sum up a few of the key things that I've learned, in my life. And I'm still learning and I'm still growing. But now more than ever, with, the pandemic and everybody having to stay apart, to kind of spend time with yourself, now's the time to do the research. The world's at your fingertips with the internet. Basically, anything you need, you can find in your home. And so I would encourage everyone to prepare your medicine bundle. That's kind of what I felt like I've been able to do here at Dene College, and gathering, one item at a time, whether it's a song, whether it's a prayer, whether it's a teaching, begin somewhere. Begin with small things, even just one little question, and share your story. What we're doing today, sharing our story. We're all in this together. We're all one people. And this knowledge must be shared. It's a huge responsibility that we have on our shoulders, but it's important. So learning and sharing your story is something that can provide healing, to other people. And it's really beautiful to hear people share their story. It tells a lot about, where we all have been in our lives, and also the similarities, that there's, I think, more similarities than differences across everybody in all walks of life. And also remembering, that we are all the same and we are one. And being able to share my story as an Indigenous person with other nationalities is really a privilege, and I want to hear your story too. And that's how we grow, and that's how we reconnect to one another. And as I mentioned, life is a journey of learning. One of my fathers, Wilson Aronoth is, he's older. He's in his upper 80s. And I love when he tells a story. He always says, from what little knowledge I know. And he just knows so much. And I only pray, that I could acquire half of the knowledge that he has, but how humble he is about what he knows and what he's learned and where he's gotten that information. It's really, really beautiful. And I'm always humbled by him and how he presents himself. And he always says, that knowledge that knowledge, learning things will always be something, and acquiring knowledge will always be with you, even into old age, even as you take your last breath. There's a learning that happens, in that moment as well. And most importantly, to have something that sustains you. A lot of people that I know have prayer, praying through it all. And one of my grandsons, Avery Denny, always says that if you have just one prayer or one song, a few words, that can take you a long way in your life. And that gives me hope, having started late in life to try to learn all of these things that have been with us since time immemorial. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming for me to think of, how much I still have to learn and what I want to do, for my family to bring that back to us. It really pushes me. And I try not to feel discouraged, when some things are hard to understand. And I just kind of try to pray through everything that I do, always remembering, that little things can take us a long way, and we don't know what the future, has for us. And so prayer is fundamental in keeping us on track. And as a Navajo woman, we have all of our teachings that we find in our ceremonies, and all different peoples, have their own stories, have their own teachings. And I like to hear, all of those things. I have a friend from Tibet who I talk to who, shares pictures and his faith. And, other Indigenous people have their own ways of going about things. And as Navajo people in particular, we're known as being highly adaptive. We've adopted a lot of things from other tribes, and so much so, we're just so good at it that they've been associated with Navajos overall. And that just kind of speaks to, how resilient we are as Navajo people. And so basically, yeah, that's my story. I wasn't really sure what to talk about, but I figured, sharing my story might help some people, and answering questions, I think, really opens up my mind to other parts of myself that I have yet to discover. And so I'm just really grateful for this opportunity, and I really look forward to, possibly doing this again. As I mentioned, this is my first time speaking like this and sharing my story, but I'm very happy to do my part, as a person, as a Navajo woman, speaking on behalf of my college as well. I like to talk about my college, and I think sharing that as well, would help others to know that if you have your own groundbreaking, if you start your own organization, that it can flourish and it can thrive even years, 50, 100, 200. That's kind of the line of thinking we have to have, down the road. And I'm a product of prayers that were said, so many years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, during the time when our people were trying to get back to our own lands with with the long walk. And so, yeah, that's basically my story. I'm not sure if anyone has questions, or I'm very happy to share. Um, I'm an open book basically, and I'm open to any questions anyone might have. So,
All right. Ya'at e and a head. In the beauty way, thank you so much, LaTanya. Your words just filled my heart with so much hope. Happy tears welled up in my eyes, LaTanya. You have so much to give to all of us. Thank you for sharing you, who you are, your essence, and you flowed so naturally like you've done this over 50 times. So I love the background, your background there, that building where the Ned Ehatali Center, that cultural center is a very beautiful, large hogan. Absolutely exquisite, little sister. We pray you the best and into the future, and put one foot in front of the other, and keep those prayers, those songs, those ceremonies, those seasonal times of respect, when to do things, when not to do things, and continue to teach all of us so that we can carry that with us as well. So while we wait for our people to come on, if do we have any questions tonight, I'd like to just take a quick commercial break to say that we have the October lineup, and we're very, very excited for the presenters and the musicians that we have lined up. We have a new lineup of artists. For more information, you can go to IndigenousWays.org. We have our Wisdom Circle presenters, and they are archived in our videos. We welcome educators, teachers, curious onlookers to review our archived presenters, including you, LaTanya. We just ask that you be very respectful as you utilize this information, and do it for sacred intentions only, for sharing information of Indigenous perspectives. We're going to have Masepa Edwards. She is Maori and Samoan from New Zealand. She is going to be our presenter next week, followed by Rogelio Fernandez Mota. And he is a beautiful role model out of Austin, Texas. He has roots in Mexico. We have a Dene College, L.A. Williams, coming on following that. And then we have our one and only massive role model, Joseph Marshall III. That guy has published like tons of books. He's been in tons of movies, done narration. He's like the Native American Charlton Heston. Mom, don't miss that one. And our concert series for the month, we are so blessed. Guess who we got? We got Velma Satani. I'm going to spell that for you. Velma is like V for Victor, Elma. Satani is S for Sam, I, T for Tom, EIN for Nancy, E. And Velma Satani is a Samoan woman from Western Samoa. That's not American Samoa, that's Western Samoa. She resides in North Island, New Zealand, lives in Auckland, in the capital. She teaches English to second language children. And we'd love for you to check out all these events. Once again, you can share this recorded video with anyone, which will be available in the next 24 hours on our website, There you will also find over 50 Indigenous presenters and artists, and we all are Indigenous. All virtual events have ASL interpreters, and we offer this. This is a free event, and we wouldn't be doing this without our sponsors. Let me just give a shout out to National Endowment of the Arts, Westaff, Westaff Cares, New Mexico Arts, New Mexico Humanities Council, and National Endowment of Humanities. And as always, we would not be doing any of this without our board members. So we want to thank our Indigenous Ways board members. And please subscribe to our weekly newsletter to find out all the stuff that we're involved with. Oh my gosh, on a global scale. Go to indigenousways.org and just click on join newsletter. And up above, right below, you can also see the information of our social media sites. And to switch gears very briefly, I'd like to just let you know that we've been grateful for the onpouring of drop offs at our house. Our financial donations for our relief runs up to Black Mountain. We are getting ready to do our relief run number 5 mid to end of October. We will keep you posted. We need all kinds of stuff. Our beautiful sister Lindine from the mountain, she's a CHR worker. She gave us a list of stuff, which is very, very tangible. She says the elders want stuff like Bengay, first aid kits, flashlights, beanie caps, nice sweaters with hoodies. She said socks would be greatly appreciated, gloves for sure, scarves for our traditional Sanis. Sanis is Saaniis, means elderly women, and those types of things. We do have a list. Again, that's on our website. In fact, you can see it right now. They even want matches too. Dog food would be nice. Yeah, it's winter time coming in. Boy, winter on Black Mountain is no joke. They also she said we sent about probably 20 puzzles up. She said, oh my God, the puzzles were a hit. So if you got any puzzles that you're done with and aren't going to use, drop them off. So other than that, you can donate to our website. You can also send us a snail mail donation if you'd like. You can donate for the virtual events, which funds our presenters and our ASL interpreters and our musicians. Or you can say, you know what, I just want this for Black Mountain. So we do have 2 different funding sites, and just let us know where you want to put that money. And I'd like to invite those of you who want to join us, come on in. Christina Bueno, I know you want to come on. Our social media, if you're in our social media, you can type in the chat box what you'd like to say and ask LeTanya. Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, you name it, we're on it. And write your questions or comments in the chat box. And let's see if we have any joiners tonight. So as we're waiting for anybody to show up, LeTanya, let me ask you a question. Have you been impacted by COVID-19, as in any of your family members or any exposures that you know of?
Yes, yes. Of course, being Navajo, we have a lot of family through, and so it's been a challenging time, but we try to remain, in prayer and to strengthen one another in that way. And I'm being a leader here at Diné College, being the student body president. I do have a lot of students who call out, to me or reach out to me for prayer. And that's really, really an honor because, to have someone ask you to pray for them really just tells me that I'm making positive impacts in such a way that people are comfortable enough to ask me for help. And it just makes my heart happy to know that people have that level of comfort with me, and to see afterward that they do feel much better and their attitude changes, their tone changes. And for me, it's just that's helped me more than anything, to be able to help someone like that. And I care for for all of our students, even, our staff, our faculty, our administrators. As a board member, from time to time, I have the privilege and honor to pray, before board meetings. And again, that's something that, Diné College equipped me with, to be able to pray, through my Christian faith and also through my traditional ways in my own language, to be able to acknowledge myself in that way, to, whether to our creator and to all of the elements. It's really helped me to feel like I'm okay, in my life. And so, yeah, I don't think anybody hasn't been impacted, honestly, by this. And that's, one commonality we all share. And I share my phone number with all of our students, and, along with our college president, Dr. Russell, he does the same. And of course, I rely on him and our board members for, for guidance on my behalf as well, and kind of helping to help myself as a leader and how to go about helping students in a positive way. I think learning those leadership roles is also something that's key as a woman in general. That's how you learn to run your home, how you learn to, I think, discipline your children, things like that. So I have a tendency to think, like, on a broader scale, nothing is small. I try to see the bigger picture in everything.
Awesome. Thank you very much, LeTanya. Appreciate your words. And I'd like to see if Christina Bueno would like to share some beautiful words tonight.
Yes, hello. I just came in. I missed almost all, or maybe about half of it, but you were talking about college life and mentoring, and my dog's sitting here bothering me, so I was a little distracted, but I had one eye on you all the time. But as I'm watching, your background's beautiful. Your story was so fascinating. I was wondering what the story behind that background is, because it looks like the Butte. Thumb Butte? Is it Thumb Butte?
Yeah. Actually, that this is Tasha's voice. That butte back there, I think it's called Black Pinnacle Peak.
Mhm.
It's between Tsaile and Wheatfields. And you can actually walk up to the top of that rock. It's a really nice rock at the, that as you're going down that hill and as you're coming up before you go into that valley, right
Yeah.
over there, there's a road and there's actually a trail that goes to the top of that. So if you want to ever go,
Wow.
Christina Bueno, go for it. Christina, before, real quickly, I just want to, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering what that was, and wondering if it was in Arizona. I'm from New York City, and so we've been a hotspot for COVID-19. That's been a struggle. Recently, we've seen a little bit of a downswing, but then it started to go up again. So I recently lost a very good friend of mine from California to COVID-19 on Wednesday, and I'm just absolutely broken up about it. It's been terrible. She was a beautiful person, and the world lost a beautiful person. COVID just really it sucks. And I just hope everybody stays safe and uses a mask.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you for always being with us and staying with this event. Sorry to hear about your friend. Sending prayers for your family, LeTanya, on the reservation, Christina, all your friends. And also, we noticed, Christina, that you hosted a watch party on Facebook. Thank you for that as well, because LaTanya's words were very meaningful and heartfelt, especially for Indigenous people stuck in big cities like yourself. It's like when you hear somebody like LaTanya, it's great.
I have a question for Christina. What part of New York are
Love
you
to
in?
love again. New York City in Manhattan.
Okay. I had the privilege of spending a summer in New York.
You know,
For
Harlem.
for 6 weeks I was in Poughkeepsie, and then for another 4 weeks I was in Manhattan. Beautiful. That was my first big city experience, and it was really big. I love New York.
All right.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a big city. And living here, I think 34 years now so far.
Wow.
Amazing. This month, soon, will be 34 years.
Thank you, Miss Bueno.
All right, real quickly on the watch party, we got a thank you very much, Christina, for that. We got Karen Price Coberly that's saying, wow, love the determination of sharing this experience with others. Yes, it was a beautiful experience. Went with my late brother and sister in law, and you're getting a wave from Sarah Youngbear. She's Meskwaki, also known as Sack and Fox from Iowa. And
Wow.
I wanted to, before we wrap it up, thank you very much, Caleb. This is Caleb's sign name. Uh, Caleb, thank you. Caleb's the IAIA student that was just on just now. So Caleb's been very supportive of us. But my question to you, LaTanya, before we wrap it up, is as an empowered Native woman, when you graduate, what is next?
I'm going into pharmacy school. So I was actually supposed to start at the University of Hawaii Hilo last August. I mean, just this past August, but with the pandemic and being so far away from home on my own, I was a little apprehensive and quite relieved when my mom said, I think you should stay close to home. And so I decided to come back to Dene College and, stay here for one more year, finish out my degree, and then continue um, back to, I'm not sure if it'll be to Hawaii this time, just with everything's really put, my life into perspective, and perhaps UNM, or I might just go to Hawaii. I haven't decided quite yet, but I think with the numbers going down and with on the Navajo Nation, they're talking about a vaccine and having those trials and that research being done through Johns Hopkins. And, just with the outlook being positive, I'm very hopeful that I will be able to venture far off from my home once this academic year ends. And I plan to come back I come actually from a tiny little town. It's called White Post. Shanto is kind of the bigger town, I guess, but there's a little IHS clinic there, an inscription house. I would very much like to return home and to build my home where I grew up, where my grandmothers raised me. So that's my plan. I love the big city, but it's I prefer to be home with my family.
Awesome, LaTanya. That's great. Caleb, would you like to say anything to another Indigenous student? Caleb hails from IAIA, from the Seminole tribe. Would you like to say anything tonight, Caleb?
No, I was just really loving the story. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. And IAIA is in Santa Fe, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
This is great. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. And as I always say, you've got such a beautiful essence. I want to thank all the Zoom participants that have joined us tonight. I'd like to thank everybody on social media, all the Facebook peeps out there, friends, family, new people. Um, everybody on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and thank you for your questions and comments. And we really are so grateful for our ASL interpreters because we feel like our ASL interpreters are bringing our communication access
Mhm.
as Indigenous people to another level for everybody to see. So thank you, Zoel and Cress, for all the work you've been doing for Indigenous Ways. We love you with all our hearts. And I think for everybody else, let's just give it up for LeTanya Thinn. Woohoo! Yay! LeTanya, we'll
Thank
be in
you.
touch. Hopefully, we
Christine
can
says,
still do
thank you
that
so
fest.
much. Keep it up.
Thank you to Zoel and to Chris. You guys are wonderful, wonderful. I appreciate, you being able to speak on my behalf, and I'm making an effort to also learn.
All right, give it up one more time for LaTanya, and we'll see you all next
Thank
week.
you.
Woohoo! Love, love, love. That's all we can do. Stay safe, everybody. Wear your masks. Thank you,
Yes.
Chris. We love you.